So Yooka-laylee on Kickstarter has been pledged over £1.5 million. That is British pounds. It's more than $2 million. And I've pledged £35. So what is Yooka-laylee? Well, if you've been living under a rock, if you don't follow gaming news that much, then I guess I can explain. Well, it is a 3D platformer, or more specifically, a collectathon platformer. Now, you should notice that you shouldn't really get confused with a 3D platformer. That's a general term. Collectathon is a subgenre within 3D platformers, so don't get those too confused. I'm going to explain the difference a little bit later. But Yooka-laylee is, like I said in a few videos back, it's a spiritual successor to Banjo-Kazooie, and you can say Donkey Kong 64, the old collectathon platformers. Mostly collectathon is what we're talking about here. I started making this video because I wanted to talk about another topic that I'm going to bring up very soon. But Yooka-laylee, at least, it is a collectathon platformer, which means that this is going to be a game about a lot of collecting, a lot of exploring really rich and colorful worlds. You'll be collecting stuff. You'll be meeting a lot of characters with their own little problems that you might help them out with little things, and then they will give you a little shiny little valuable thing. It can be in Banjo, it can be a Jiggy. In Donkey Kong 64, it can be a golden banana. A Jiggy, by the way, is a golden jigsaw puzzle if you've never played Banjo-Kazooie. In Super Mario 64, it's a golden star. You collect these. These are really valuable items that you collect, and you use them to unlock new levels in a hub world. Specifically a hub world. 3D platformers, and especially collectathon platformers, always have a hub world. They have a hub world that which is a big world, a big level in itself, which you will gradually unlock more of as you go. It is the portal, the meeting point between all the levels. So you make it further into the hub world and you unlock more levels. You may have seen Super Mario 64 with its castle. You open up more rooms in the castle and there are more pictures you can jump into. Those are the levels in the hub world. The castle itself is the hub world. That's the one big level that you are progressing throughout the game, in between, as a little segue in between the levels, instead of the traditional map screen thing or the level select, which was very normal before Super Mario 64 came out and Banjo-Kazooie. So collectathon 3D platformers kind of just died out, and they have kind of been gone until now. And now suddenly they are coming back, or maybe not. That is the thing I wanted to discuss. Are 3D platformers, or more specifically collectathons, coming back? Now, to completely define the line between a 3D platformer and a collectathon specifically is, like I said, like Banjo-Kazooie and Tooie and Donkey Kong 64, very typically, you collect a lot of stuff. Super Mario 64 is slightly on the edge. Super Mario Sunshine is slightly on the edge. There are games like, I think, Super Mario Galaxy, for example. It's a 3D platformer, but certainly not a collectathon. Collecting isn't required to progress. Well, now that I think of it, it actually is sort of, you need to collect stars to progress, so I guess it is. So I guess actually Galaxy is also pretty much on the same level as Super Mario 64 and Sunshine. It's the same thing there. Those are kind of like on the fence. Crash Bandicoot, for example, is a very linear 3D platform, not a collectathon. Yet even there, collecting can open up bonus areas, but it's not required in order to beat the game. So it's the goal is getting to the end of the level. The goal isn't to enter the level, collect all the notes, collect all the jiggies. That's not the goal. So that defines the big difference between a collectathon and just an ordinary 3D platformer. Now, why should 3D platformers be coming back? Well, I think we're reaching the point where 3D platformers are getting so old now that they're starting to become retro. Now, 2D games, side-scrolling platformers, old things like arcade style beat 'em up games and arcade style, I don't know, anything from the 80s has been very relevant lately. I think when we got into the seventh generation of consoles, we started getting these consoles with we started getting these online services like Xbox Live Arcade. We got PSN and WiiWare and Virtual Console. We started seeing a lot of smaller games being put out online. We could play these little 2D games. First, there were just a lot of re-releases, but then we started seeing a lot of brand new 2D games being played on the consoles. If you just go back to a year like 2002, there were no 2D games. Everything was 3D. Nintendo were not making any 2D games. The 2D games were abandoned to the realm of handhelds. That's where they were. Between Super Mario World in 1990, I think, around that time, and New Super Mario Brothers Wii in 2009, I think. That's almost 20 years of no 2D Mario games on the consoles. And then suddenly after that, they started raining New Super Mario Brothers. There was New Super Mario Brothers U. Just generally, the Wii had Kirby's Epic Yarn, Wario Land, the Shake Dimension. Suddenly, Wario Land started popping up on the console. And think back to the GameCube. There were no 2D games on that one. There were absolutely no side scrollers there. And then on the Wii, they were raining 2D games. The Wii U still pretty much more 2D games than 3D games. We got the Clay Kirby game. We got Yoshi's Woolly World coming out. We got New Super Mario Brothers U. We got Rayman Legends, not an exclusive. It was going to be an exclusive, and then it was multi-platform. So 2D games are trendy. Everyone is making them. So 3D platformers could have a harder time becoming trendy again. They are coming of age to the point where they are starting to become retro, but what is going to put them on the map again? Because side-scrolling platformers and just generally a lot of old genres from the 80s were brought back through download services. How are 3D platformers going to prove that they're relevant? I think we just need a really good 3D platformer that a lot of people play, that everyone wants to be like. I mean, people are clearly chasing success. One good 3D platformer could change a lot. Yooka-laylee's got a lot of money. I backed £35. Is it enough? Is it enough to become the next big thing? And that's the scary thing here. If it's not Yooka-laylee, then what other game could it be that turns the entire industry around? Like, does Nintendo need to make a proper 3D Mario game? Who needs to make a proper 3D Mario game before everyone starts coming back with their old franchises and some new ones? And then Activision starts making a Crash game, and Ubisoft decides to make a new Rayman game. And then Microsoft somehow mysteriously manages to make a good Banjo game. But they're not gonna make a traditional collectathon Banjo game until they see it's profitable. Reason why they made Nuts and Bolts, because no one really cared about collectathons. They thought, okay, that genre is completely relevant now, let's make it a vehicle-based game instead. And it was a massive failure. But then you can also ask yourself, if it was a 3D platformer, would it be a success? Or would it be as Microsoft predicted, that no one cares about 3D platformers? I think it would have sold better at least, but would people be ready for a 3D platformer back in 2008? Are people ready for it now? That's the question. We'll just have to wait and see. At least Yooka-laylee is looking absolutely fantastic. I hope you support the game, and I hope for the best of luck to these people, and I hope they can bring us at least one step closer to getting the collectathon golden age back.